Hi, this is Nina, and welcome to the Entrepreneurs in a Game podcast. Today, I've got an amazing guest, someone who's grown a really big business, and I can't wait to introduce him to you. His name is Anthony Constantino, and he's the co-founder and CEO of Stickermill. He's a factory guy at heart. He oversees an operation that spans 16 countries in 4 continents, with customers including Google, Facebook, Twitter, and many of the world's best brands. Anthony's determined to make Stickermill, already the internet's favorite printing company, the absolute best place to work and shop. Anthony, welcome to the Entrepreneurs in a Game podcast.
Thanks, Nina. Happy to be here.
Oh, it's wonderful to have you here, and I can't wait to find out about your global business. And I know that you can only create a business of that size when you've got the thinking to be able to take that sort of action. So I'm really looking forward to finding out about your inner game that's enabled you to grow a business this big and to become much bigger as you go through it, I'm sure. And I'd love to find out how you've come to this place already, how what your journey's been, and how you decided to create this company, what brought it about. So please do share that with us.
Yeah, well, it's fun. I think one of the things that allowed us to get, to where we got, and I'm actually quite secret about sharing exact numbers, but, we're doing quite well. And I was talking to one of my coworkers recently, and I was saying to him about the fact that, in my mind, Stickermill is still a small business. And he's like, well, not really. We're quite large, but my mindset's always been that you're going to be as good as who you measure yourself against. So you got to think about who you measure yourself against. And I guess I learned in high school, really through sports. I remember I was doing sports in high school, and I saw kids that were so content to just be the best in their school or the best in their city, or maybe someone to be the best in the state. And then you'd meet other kids that want to be the best in the nation. And then I was just talking to a kid, the other day that wants to go on to college and be one of the best athletes in the world. And I started thinking about this like when I was young, and I realized you're only going to get as far as the bar you measure yourself against. So Stickermill is doing well, but in my mind, we still haven't really accomplished much, and I think that attitude is why we've been able to get so far, or get to where we've gotten.
Yeah, I completely get where you're coming from. That you measure yourself against the best, but how do you have that thinking to say I can do that? Because many people think actually they're really good at what they do. I can't do that. I'll never be that good. So what's the point in trying? Or I'll settle for a lower level of my business, and that's my potential.
Well, like I said, to go back to it, it's interesting. I just spent the weekend with my high school wrestling coach, and I went and watched his kid wrestle. He's the kid I was referring to, and I was a terrible athlete my whole life. I was terrible when I was young. I didn't even think I could do sports, and I got forced into doing a sport, and my friend was like, why don't you join the wrestling team? And I was terrible. I was probably the worst there ever was. In fact, I lost my first 30 matches in under a minute, which I think is a record for badness. And later on in my career, my junior year, I got a new coach, and he started talking to me about mindset and visualization and these topics. And I remember to start my senior year, he said, the first day of practice, he said, I want you to put down on paper where you're going to end up at the end of the year. And I want you to think about it every day. And I was a terrible wrestler. I had no shot at doing anything. So my goal was to be second in the region, which I thought was an unbelievable goal. And at the time it was an unbelievable goal. But I put it down and I thought about it every day. I would drive home and think about it. And I actually ended up second in the region, which was the best finish of anyone in my high school. I still to this day is the best finish of anyone in my high school. And so I think from that day forward, I just realized the power of who you measure yourself against. And thinking back, I was like, why did I decide to be second in a region? And I realized when I set that goal for myself, I was never going to go farther than that. I was never going to be, first. You're not going to say, well, I want to be second in the region and suddenly end up top in the state. It's just not going to happen that way. So later on, after that, I wasn't a very good student, but I went to college and I was like, I wasn't a very good wrestler, but I decided I wanted to be second in the region. It sort of happened. And I said, well, what, can I do the same thing with academics? And, I ended up being quite good academically after that. I went from being I was a terrible student in high school. But, I ended up being quite good in college. And then I just always have that attitude since that moment. So I think maybe everyone like sort of needs that moment. Maybe this conversation is that moment for some people, but you have to realize that, you're only going to be as good as you want to be, or as good as you see yourself being able to be. But really, it's not so hard to do things once you set your mind to it.
Yeah. And you make it sound so easy.
Well, you know, I remember when we started Stickermill, my co-founder's 77 now, and he was late 60s at the time, and it was really his idea. Well, it was his idea for us to get moving and get on and get the business started. And I remember saying to him with a little bit of reluctance, what makes us think we could be successful at this? Because prior to that, I had been a manufacturing guy. I was a manufacturing guy my whole life, and yeah, I didn't know anything about the internet. I didn't know anything about software. I didn't know anything about marketing, and neither did he. He was a manufacturing guy his whole life and retired as a manufacturing, person. And I just said, well, what makes you think we could do this? And he's like, well, as far as I know, I've never failed at anything in my life. And he's like, I don't think you've ever failed at anything in your life. He's like, we're just going to say we're going to do it. And we're going to do it. And that's all there is to it. And I was like, all right. So we just went about it with that attitude. It's the first business I've ever started. And, ended up working out. I think the success rate for businesses is rather small, but we just had an attitude that we weren't going to fail no matter what.
Okay. And you said something really interesting. You said that when you were setting your goal for the wrestling, you used to think about it every day.
Yeah.
So tell me more about that, about goal setting and actually, focusing on the goal as well.
Yeah, I think visualization is quite helpful. I used it for wrestling. I thought about it every day. I actually predicted who I would lose to, which, was foolish. I should predict myself winning, but, I actually lost to the person I predicted I would lose to. I thought about it losing to this particular person every day, and it ended up happening. Later on in life, I got into working out and gym and stuff like that. And I thought about, where I wanted to be, what I wanted my body to look like. And, that I was able to do. And I think I did the same thing with Stickermill. I remember when we started the company, early on, I would go to sleep. I would go to sleep doing virtual walkthroughs of the organization in my brain. And I would just walk through the organization and think about, what was right about it, what was wrong about it, what we were going to fix, and, where we were going to be one day. And yeah, we always seem to make forward progress for that reason. But I think whatever you focus on, it just seems to come to fruition.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. So the visualization has played a big part in your success.
I've been a fan of it. I don't know if I've been surprisingly good at anything without doing that, but I've been a fan of it.
And tell me about your visualization. How do you do it? How often do you do it?
When I don't do it. It's not something.
Or do you not think about it? You just do it automatically without even thinking?
I probably just do it. I probably just do it throughout the day. I like to walk through the company virtually in my brain. I just walk around and I just walk around in my brain when I'm bored and look for problems. Because I don't know. I try to walk through the organization, look for problems. That's another thing I think in business. I simplify business as saying well, my co-founder said you really only do two things in business: you increase revenue and decrease cost. I said you really only do two things: you find problems and you fix them. And the bigger the problems you solve, the more money you tend to make. So you look at some of the biggest companies in the world; they solve really big problems like Google and people like that. But maybe our problems are a bit smaller in scale. But first we had to solve the problem of how do you make it easy for people to buy stickers on the internet? And then once we resolve that, there's lots of little tiny problems within the organization. And I'm just constantly walking through the organization, looking at problems and looking for problems, fixing problems, and teaching other people to do the same.
Interesting. It's fascinating. And how do you deal with setbacks? Because I imagine there hasn't been a smooth path all the way. There may have been some bumps in the road. Sometimes you thought this is a really big challenge. How are we going to get past this? And maybe something hasn't worked the way that you wanted it to work. How have you dealt with those times or those setbacks?
I say, I see other people that can do it, and I like to think I could do it. I just resolve setbacks through sheer force of will. I do everything possible to resolve it. Honestly, the two biggest setbacks I had, I don't, it's unrelated to work, but, I had, and without getting into specifics, like I had like health issues. I had two major health issues where I was sick for quite a while. Um, During the beginning of the company, I was sick for almost a year, two times, and 3 months into both illnesses, without getting, 3 months into both illnesses, like I went to like various doctors, and they were all like, "We have no idea how to resolve this." And I was just like, "Well, this is terrible. I'm 3 months into an illness with no resolution." And my attitude was I just don't like to give up. So I went and I bought every book I could on the situation I had. I read everything I could find, and eventually I found like alternative treatments that worked, and I did them like relentlessly, and I got 100% better. Um, so I don't know, it's just my attitude. I mean, like the way I got better was I looked at like all the treatment options out there, and I was like, I'm gonna do anything that can't hurt me. Some people, and I ended up working with a therapist to resolve that, my problems. And the therapist is like, I've never seen somebody so relentless as you. They're like, most of the clients that we have, I don't know, people might not want to put in like 5 hours of work a day to resolve an illness. They just want to take a pill and have it go away. But my attitude is like, I don't have anything else to do during the day. Like, I learned from my co-founder that he was amazing at always saying, like, if something worthwhile came in front of us, he's like, why don't we just do it now? He's just like, because so many people they're doing nothing and throughout the day. And I've always been like, if there's something worthwhile doing, you should just do it. So for me, when I had health problems, I was like, well, if I have to do 5 hours of therapy a day, I'll do 5 hours of therapy a day. I don't really care. Like, is there something so important to do that I can't do this? And probably I spent time doing things that didn't help my situation at all. But I was like, well, I'll do anything that doesn't hurt. I think I'm probably the same attitude in business. I've had an easier time in business than I had with things. Those are harder to resolve for me, believe it or not, than some of the business challenges, because I'm not a medical doctor and I didn't know anything about these topics. But the business challenges is sort of the same thing. It's like you just have to try everything you can try until you come about a solution. And I'm always game for trying things that don't hurt. And I try not to be a workaholic. I'm probably not a workaholic anymore, but it certainly helps if you're willing to put in time.
So you're not a workaholic now?
I try not to be.
What's your version of a workaholic? How many hours would you say?
I'm pretty good now. I think probably I work less than 40 right now. I mean, there was definitely a time where I worked probably all I did was work. No, it was definitely a time I worked probably closer to like 80 hours a week. I was living with a bunch of friends when I started the company, and they all moved out, and they actually moved to different states. And a few years down the road, they were like, "Yeah, we left because you didn't even hang out with us. You just worked all day." I was like, "Oh, starting a company at the time."
You cleared the house.
Yeah, like no point. You didn't want to do anything except work. But so I was starting a company at the time, and we started the Stickermill just after the 2008 recession, which, if people remember, was a terrible time. So at the time, it didn't bother me working a lot. I mean, the whole world was going through a hard time, so work 80 hours a week didn't seem like that big of a deal. Versus the alternative back then, which was being a really bad situation.
Yeah, it felt like we were really close to the cliff edge at that time, didn't it?
Yeah. So it came natural to want to work a lot back then. Since things got better, I probably work around 40 hours, maybe less, depends.
That sounds pretty healthy. So what's coming through really, really clearly is that you have a relentless focus.
Mm-hmm.
How do you, is that just something you have, or is that something that you work to get? How do you have that sort of focus? Or is it just, if it comes to
I don't know. I think
that question.
I developed it in high school because I probably didn't have focus early on in my life. Like I said, like sports was the first thing that gave me that. And I was talking to some kids this weekend because I went and watched the wrestling tournament. And, like a lot of them didn't know what they wanted to do. They weren't sure if they wanted to wrestle. And I think you develop it by finding something you enjoy and becoming good at it. You got to be doing something you like. But I was like, if I was talking to some kids, I'm like, if you don't like wrestling, maybe there's no sense beating your head against the wall trying to become good at it if you don't have the passion for it. But I think you can develop it because anyone can develop it if they find something they enjoy and they become relentless at that thing that they like doing. Or, the other option is find something you don't like doing and become good at it just as a challenge to yourself to see if you can, see if you can do it. But you can probably develop it. You just have to go through a process of taking something and saying, I want to figure out how to become good at this. I actually, a friend of mine asked me to go into high school and talk to the kids. And I basically told them something along those lines, that you don't realize what you're learning in high school, but you could be learning skills through video games, through sports, through any number of things, because I've seen kids that were relentless about being good at video games. And if you can become one of the best in the world at a video game, which some kids are the best in the world, why can't you apply that same attitude to become best in the world at another endeavor? But you have to take something and learn how to become really good at it.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. But it may be the balance between having the passion to do something and really wanting to keep on learning how to do it better versus the distractions that are around. It's easy to succumb to the distractions, isn't it? And then you lose the momentum, then you may not go back to that activity. Then you think, oh, well, I'll try something else. And the same thing keeps happening again and again. And this is a pattern we can fall into as business owners. I'll do that strategy, start off really excited, going to get that strategy going. And then, a little bit down the line, you lose a bit of interest in it, or you don't see the results. And then you think, oh, I'll chase the next shiny object. And then it just keeps going from place to place without getting any real results. How do you get past that bit?
The number one thing in getting good at anything is you have a finite amount of time to get good at anything you do, right? So not to keep using a high school sports example, but the thing that helped me was I was just going into my senior year, I was terrible. And I saw that there was kids going into their ninth grade year that were like winning state championships. And I'm like, all right, in the ninth grade, you're 13 years old. You just barely became entered young adulthood. I mean, a few years ago, you were just a little kid still. So they obviously were able to move very quickly and become good very quickly. And I was like, if a 13-year-old can learn how to become a state champion at age 13, I can learn how to do it at age 17. And you kind of just have to apply that to whatever you do. That you have to appreciate that time is finite. I tell everyone at work, time's finite. Time's more important than money. Time's finite, money isn't. You can find more money, you can't find more time. So whatever you're trying to become good at, don't waste time. And yeah, it is a skill to learn not to be a procrastinator. I got it, I think, through sports, and I got it through working with my co-founder. He was phenomenal about not wasting time. And prior to working with me, he actually was at times my tutor in school, and I would call him at times when I wasn't doing so well in high school and in college. And he would just immediately say, well, I can come over right now to help you. I'm like, right now? Most people say I can come over Tuesday, I can come over. He's just like, I'm not doing anything right now. How about we get together right now? And in work, when we would come across, a situation, well, for example, starting the company, we had a brief conversation about I talked to him about kind of BSing about the idea of starting an internet business just randomly at 5:00 one night just before Christmas. And the next day he came and saw me and he said, I thought about your idea and I decided we should do it. And I was like, yeah, okay, maybe a year from now. And he's like, no, we're going to do it now. We're not going to do it. And he's just like, what else you got going on? And I was like, well, working. But he's like, well, this is bigger than that. And this is a great opportunity. I want to do it now. And I don't know, he was always good about that, just not wasting time. And I've told everyone ever since then, speed kills. If you're getting more done, you can make more mistakes. And some people are so stressed out about not making mistakes that they get nothing done. I'd rather just get 100 things done and make 20 mistakes than get 5 things done perfectly.
Yeah. And what is your secret to productivity?
The secret to productivity is I guess just realize that a lot of times throughout the day, you're not doing anything that important. And then when something important does get put in front of you, you should do it. I mean, some people stress themselves out with things that don't really matter. You got to evaluate everything in front of you and say, is this gonna affect anything? Move the needle? Yes or no. So if you go back earlier in Stickermill, I was notorious for just getting on a plane when I had an opportunity to hire somebody really good. Because early on in the company, at a certain point where hiring people was the most important thing for us to do. So if a candidate came in front of us, I would get on the phone with them and talk to them and say, what are you doing tomorrow? I say, what do you mean? Well, I can fly out and see you tomorrow. And whatever else I had going on, there's nothing more important. There was nothing more important to me at that time than getting on a plane. Sometimes I put myself through misery getting on too many airplane flights to do stuff like that. But I don't know if it's spider sense or whatever, but you have to have an ability to like notice like when an opportunity gets put in front of you that's more important than everything else that you're currently doing. And you got to be able to say, all right, I was planning on doing this, this, and this in the next few days, but now this opportunity got put in front of me. So those things really aren't that important. I'm going to do that. I was at this tournament this weekend, and like there was a kid that was a decent kid on the team, and he ended up losing. And as soon as he lost, he left and went home, and he didn't stay and support his teammates. And I was just like, that's such a terrible decision, because what could you have to do that's more important than support your teammates? It's like, I understand you lost and you feel bad, but what are you going to do for the rest of the day? Go home and watch television? I mean, is that so important? Like, but you have to be able to think like that, like, you know. And I guess like a lot of people don't realize that's, I don't know, sometimes it's hard for people to realize like that what they have in front of them maybe isn't that important, and that this other activity, you know, has value. Like supporting your teammates has value, just like, because later in life, when you're in a business setting, supporting your coworkers has value. And there's been a lot of times where I've made decisions to, you know, help people at work or help people with personal situations at work, help people with things after hours, because I'll look at my own schedule and say, well, what am I doing tonight? And so many people, they go home from work, all they do is watch television. It's like, if I have watch television or like help someone, I always choose help someone. Maybe 90% of the time you get nothing in return for it. But, you know, 10% of the time you get something huge in return for it.
You do. Yeah, you get a huge amount in return. So it sounds to me as if we're making choices all the time, but a lot of the time we don't really aware we're making a choice when we choose to just start, you know, we're in the middle of a project and we think, oh, I don't want to do that, I'm going to go and surf on the internet for, you know, and you end up being on there for 2 hours. We actually have made a choice, but it doesn't seem like a choice. It just seems we're more drawn to doing, you know, the easy option, if you like, and then we beat ourselves up. We you know, at the end of the day, we think, I didn't really achieve anything, I'll try again tomorrow, and it just becomes that pattern, that continual pattern. But actually, we can make intentional choices about how we use our time. Now, I love it when you say, you know, what's the other thing you're going to do rather than doing that important activity to move the business forward. Actually, when you say it that way, then there is nothing more important in that moment, is there? You might as well just get on with the activity and do it.
Or move the business forward, or, you know, help someone in need.
Or help someone, or whatever it is. And that's just a brilliant example of that boy who went home rather than supporting his teammates, because he made a choice maybe without even realizing it. And sometimes it can just be the easy option, isn't it? But it doesn't serve us as well as taking, sometimes it can feel like the tougher road.
Yeah. Yeah. And the flip side, you know, I think if you take my approach, you end up having a lot more fun too, because you have to also be able to say, when you're doing things that aren't important, I mean, people drive themselves nuts too, doing, you know, I got to work for 10 hours today. Well, what do you have to do? Nothing really important. Go have fun. I mean, like, if you have nothing to do that's important, don't make yourself sit in front of a computer for 10 hours.
Yeah.
It makes it a lot easier to go out and push yourself when you need to, if you're also, you know, having fun. So I'll go into the office and goof off fairly often. You know, I'm notorious for, you know, when we travel, we have a ton of fun when we travel. Like, I don't take trips too seriously. It's like, we go to machine shows and we do different events, and I don't know. It's like, I like to work quickly, get the work done as quickly as possible, and then go have fun. Like, I'm not going to make people work 10 hours just to do it.
Yeah. And it's really making what you do count. It's focusing on the activities, because we can spend a lot of time doing stuff which doesn't really make that much of a difference. But it's really focusing on what counts in your business and doing that activity first. And how do you do that? How do you prioritize? What's the most important thing to work on?
I have an article on that on the website, you know, like Stickermill and prioritization, where I went through it a bit. But, you know, probably at the end of the day, I can't recall what I wrote. I write things down because my memory's not so good, but I would check that article. In a sense, I think you have to look for the most impactful thing that you could do. I'm constantly searching for the most impactful thing you could do, because if you can do something really impactful, like, for example, you could drive yourself crazy doing, you know, working all day on something, or you could hire somebody really good, and, you know, it's a common example, hire somebody really good and have them do it for you, right? And you have a tremendous amount of free time. So I would rather work for a day, you know, maybe hiring the best person I could find, than, you know, run around like a crazy person trying to do like a lot of miscellaneous tasks, myself. Like that's an example of, searching for something impactful. But yeah, you got to look for whatever the most impactful thing is to do. And I guess you can develop a skill to do that if you keep practicing hunting for the most impactful thing. Maybe it's like spider sense. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, because so many times we just feel like overwhelmed. There's so many different things that, we could be doing, so many different paths we could be taking in our business.
Yeah.
You hear about someone doing well, doing social media. You hear about someone doing well on their podcast. You hear about someone doing this. You think, well, maybe I should be trying that. But it's really, finding your skill set, I suppose, what you really enjoy doing and doing more of those activities, because that's where your passion will lie within your business, doing the marketing and, that you really, really enjoy doing.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this: most of the things that you do that you think are going to be impactful and that will not be. I mean, probably 90% of my ideas that I thought were going to be amazing, were not amazing, and so that gets back to just moving quickly and doing a lot of things. So I think you develop that skill of being able to identify impactful tasks or being able to prioritize by practicing. So you have to come up with ideas, get them done as quickly as possible, and then over time you see what worked and what didn't, and you get better at maybe pre-guessing up front. But I still do things all the time, especially in marketing, I do things where we think this is going to be a huge win and it ends up being nothing, or this is going to be a nothing and it ends up being a huge win. So you have to do a lot of things, and but you do develop your skill over time.
You never quite know.
Guess. Yeah, you can get better at guessing and predicting what's going to be a big win. But the best thing to do is just get a lot done.
Yeah.
And avoid things that are really obvious. I don't know. Avoid things that are obviously not going to move the needle. And avoid, I don't know. It's I'm a huge fan of doing things that are easy. If I could do it quickly, I'm almost always do it. It's you have to sit and think more. If it's well, this is a 2-week project, is a month-long project, versus you have something that's well, I could do this in an hour. Okay, well, what am I doing in the next hour? Maybe it's not good. For example, we set up our Yelp profile recently in our local city, which probably will not move the needle at all. But I was we want job applicants to have a positive view of us, and maybe some of them stumble on Yelp. Well, what's it take to set up a Yelp profile? An hour, 30 minutes? Not a lot of time. Probably not going to do anything, but whatever, I did it. It's done. Or somebody else did it for us. So if something's easy, I almost always do it. If it's a little harder, you got to put more thought into it and try to guess.
And you never know which activity is going to give you the big results. But the more activities you do, as you said, you can start narrowing down to the ones which are more likely to.
Yeah. I mean, another example, we're trying to get better at hiring recently. And we did a soup festival, right? And you could come and I was this is a terrible idea because we did it in the middle of winter. It was freezing cold out. And I was just nobody's going to come. It's freezing cold. I thought 20 people were going to come, but we actually ended up having 600 people come.
Wow.
Yeah, to eat soup. And we had 60 people apply to come work for us. And I was you just never know. I was
never know.
First I thought it was a good idea, then I thought it was a terrible idea, and then it ended up being a really good idea. But the night before, I was telling everyone we're going to have 10 people. Nobody's going to come. It's -6.
Amazing.
But they came. So
that's a really great result. So what's your top, we've gone through a lot about mindset, but what's your top mindset tip you can share with our listeners and with our viewers about how they can grow their business?
I think my top tip, or the thing I always fall back to, is who do you measure yourself against, and who do you measure yourself against? Where do you want to end up, and then reverse engineer what that person did to get there. And there's a cool video on the internet I just watched recently. I love Mike Tyson got his start in my hometown. I love Mike Tyson. For people that know him or don't, I've always been a fan. But they said, his original coach did an interview. It's on YouTube, and he said what he really did for Mike Tyson was he explained to him what it's going to take to be a world champion when he was 14 years old. He was this is what you're going to have to do if you want to be a world champion. And he's do you want to be a world champion? And Mike Tyson decided he wanted to be a world champion, and he accepted what was necessary to get there, and he did all those things. So I would say decide where you want to end up, and there's sacrifices every time you go higher. So, you got to decide there's nothing wrong with saying I want to be a small business versus a medium-sized business versus large business. You got to decide, what you want to do, and then reverse engineer what other people did to get there.
Yes. So you set an intention rather than end up there through default, because you never made any decisions. You just all went with the flow, and then you end up somewhere and you think, this is not what I really wanted.
Yeah.
It's easy to end up somewhere where, through default, isn't it? Through not having that positive intention. And then
you have to decide where you want to go. You have to decide where you want to go, and then you have to reverse engineer what it takes to get there. And like in my wrestling career, like when I decided I wanted to be second in the section, I looked at other kids that were top people in the section. I was like, what do they do? And fortunately, there was one kid that did an interview with the newspaper, and I read the interview, and he's like, I wake up every morning, I run 5 miles. And I was like, well, I guess I got to do that. I mean, this kid was a star in the area. Everybody loved him. And a lot of people probably just thought he was naturally amazing. Like, I think that was the attitude. But I read the article and I was like, oh, this guy runs 5 miles every morning. Like, I don't know anyone else that's running 5 miles every morning. And like, so then I got up and I started running 5 miles every day. And, I just started looking at the people that were exceptional, and I oriented my mind that way. So, yeah, I think that's my number one tip. Decide where you want to go, find a good example, and then reverse engineer what they did to get there. Don't think that person got lucky.
Yes.
But really look at what they did and try to replicate.
And there's that reminds me of my Ashtanga yoga class. I go a couple of times a week, and there's a woman there who is amazing. She's almost like a gymnast. And I said to her one day, you're amazing at what you do. And she said, I practice every day. And I thought, that's why you're amazing at this. It's not by chance. It's not because you're just born flexible, or, you were born this way. She practices every single day.
Yeah.
And I go twice a week, and my results speak for going twice a week, and her results speak for someone who does it every day. So putting the effort into it, isn't it? And she's made that decision that she's going to carve out time.
Yeah, that's what she wants to be good at. That's what she wants to excel at. And, she was able to do it. But yeah, you rarely find somebody that's like exceptional that just like stuck, like by luck. I mean, some people have natural gifts, but even, like a Mike Tyson, if you listen to him, he's a guy that was born with tremendous natural gifts, tremendous athleticism, power, and speed, and whatever. But he was working like a maniac since he was 14 years old to become who he ended up, becoming. And then he ended up, falling off the beaten path a bit. But what he accomplished.
Yeah. Brilliant. So, Anthony, can you just share a little bit about what you do, what your company does, and also let our listeners and our viewers how they can find out more about your work as well?
Sure, we skipped over that a little bit at the beginning, but Stickermill is the internet's favorite printing company. We started off making stickers, but we've since expanded into quite a few other products, buttons, labels, magnets, and so on and so forth. And we're looking at doing a few more things soon. But, what we really led us to success was that we made it as easy as possible for people to buy. And we took a process that I think used to take, I don't know, hours, maybe 6 to 8 hours, spread across days to place an order for custom printing. And we turned it into something anyone can do in 30 seconds.
Wow.
Yeah. And in doing that, we realized that there's a much larger market of people that want our products. They were just intimidated by the purchasing process. And people are constantly looking for people in the old days, pre-internet. They were always saying, well, you either got to win on price or you got to win on quality. But, I said, well, you could also win on transaction time because people do value their time. And so, yeah, we focus on making it incredibly easy to buy, incredibly unintimidating, so that anyone can buy, whether you're, a high school kid or, somebody that's retired, and make it as easy as possible for everyone. It worked out for us.
Fantastic. And how can we find out more about these products? Where can we go?
Check us out, stickermill.com. And also I tell everyone, I'm not a big believer in social media, but check out our Twitter. It's super fun. Everybody loves our Twitter. I think we have probably the most active brand Twitter on the internet, other than like the massive brands like the Nikes and so on and so forth. But we have a kid that manages our Twitter, and he does an outstanding job. It's a lot of fun.
Fantastic. Well, I'll definitely be checking out your Twitter account. And I had a look at your website, the products. They look really great. It's a very wide range of stuff, and I would encourage everyone who's who's watching this interview to go along and have a look. And I'm sure they're going to find loads of great stuff there. And thank you so much for being here. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, and found out some amazing information about focusing and goal setting and all those things. And thank you so much for sharing. So. With us, and it's been a huge learning curve for me, and for everyone who's been watching and listening. I hope you got a ton of value from here, and thank you for being here, and till next time, bye bye for now.